we brought in Dr. Cyril Wecht, considered to be one of the world's best forensic pathologists. Now, he has personally performed more than 18,000 autopsies and served as a consultant for another 40,000. Dr. Wecht has reviewed or been involved in nearly every high-profile investigation, including President John Kennedy, Elvis Presley, O.J. Simpson, John Benet Ramsey, just to name a few. Dr. Wecht has written many books, and his latest is Final Exams, True Crime Cases from Cyril Wecht. It's available at planetandrule.com and on amazon.com. Now, Dr. Wecht thoroughly examined Darby and Kiera's autopsy reports, and he's joining us now via Polycom with his findings. Dr. Wecht, it's so good to talk to you again.
Hi, Dr. Phil. Thank you for inviting me to discuss this matter with you.
Well, let's start with Darby. You looked at everything. What did you come away with? What did you find?
Darby had multiple abrasions, scratch marks, contusions, bruises on various parts of his face and other parts of the body. There were many, more than a dozen. And then beneath the scalp, there were multiple hemorrhages. We call them subgaleal. The galea, G-A-L-E-A, is a tight fibrous membrane that overlies the top of the skull beneath the scalp. When you peel back the scalp in the performance of the autopsy, you find these hemorrhages which are not visible externally. There were multiple galeal hemorrhages, and they were on different parts of the head. Those hemorrhages occur only from some kind of impact. It can be the head striking against something, or it may be the head being struck by something. The brain was markedly swollen. There was severe congestion, backup of blood, and edema, collection of fluid in the lungs. So this was a process then that had gone on for some minutes or so. Interestingly, there were some petechial hemorrhages found on the thymus and the surfaces of the lungs. We find these sometimes in cases of asphyxiation.
You said there were broken ribs. Could this
Yes.
have occurred during CPR?
No, Dr. Phil, there were fractures of ribs 7 and 8 on the left side. The pathologist did a good job, and there's a microscopic examination. The microscopic examination reveals various histological changes. Number one, they don't occur acutely. They take hours and days. And number two, they're not from birth because they would have all been resorbed. So what you have is clear evidence of traumatic fractures of the 7th and 8th ribs, and they definitely are not due to cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and they are not due to birth trauma of 19 months earlier. And when you have a child with multiple bruises and abrasions externally, and you have multiple subgaleal hemorrhages, these are from trauma. How the trauma occurred, I can't be sure. By the way, some are older and some are fresher. So this is not just something that occurred on one singular occasion. Somebody, the caregiver responsible for this child over a period of time, has to answer, how is it that a 19-month-old toddler sustained multiple injuries and bruises? There is an explanation that must be forthcoming here, and it is not present so far in the discussions that I have heard.
Okay.
This is a case that is highly suspicious.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.